Thank goodness. Thank goodness this trade didn't go through. Today we're talking about Boston Bruins defenseman Nikita Zadorov, a guy who was in the news because, according to some reports from interesting sources, let's just go out there and say, apparently Nikita Zadorov might have nixed a trade to the Oilers. Let's dive into this scoop over here. Oilers Hub posted a quote from David Pagnotta on the fourth period earlier this afternoon. David Pagnotta reports that the Boston Bruins and the Edmonton Oilers had a trade in place to send Darnell Nurse to Boston. A player that was part of the deal heading to Edmonton exercised their no-trade clause and vetoed the trade. Now, you have Puck Empire, an Instagram and Twitter account that has garnered a lot of attention over the past few years. They do some awesome work. Obviously, Puck Empire, they're not necessarily like mainstream journalism-based media. They're just an Instagram account. And don't get me wrong, there is validity in that, but it's not a traditional source that goes out there and gets the scoop on what's going on. They tweeted out that according to what they've been told, the player that nixed a trade to Edmonton was Nikita Zadorov. You have a number of replies. Hey, good thing that bum decided to stay away from us. Dude, Sweeney has to be an idiot to trade Zadorov, who was probably their best defenseman last year. Gosh, Sweeney, if this is true, how do you have a job? Probably for the best, LMAO. The dude ran around bulldozing Edmonton in that 2024 series against Vancouver, and he is definitely still hated in Edmonton. Did Nikita Zadorov exercise his right to stay in Boston and prevent a trade to Edmonton? This wouldn't be the first time a notable name has declined to go to the Oilers. I'm thinking about Louis Eriksson from multiple years ago, who had a deal sending him to Edmonton from Vancouver, and he decided to nix that trade as well. It wasn't until the very end of his contract where he actually was able to get traded to Arizona alongside of Jay Beagle and Antoine Roussel, but we're not going to talk about that. Nikita Zadorov is making $5 million a year till the end of 2031, and if you take a look at the trade protection, he does have a modified no-trade clause right now. 16-team trade list, but still, that means there are 15 other teams that he is not able to get traded to. Last season, he had a full no-trade clause, although, if we're being real, if we're thinking about the timeline of these potential trade reports, if these Bruins and Oilers trade talks for Darnell Nurse happened before July 1st, then maybe Nikita Zadorov actually would have been able to exercise his full no-trade clause, because that would have still been valid. It's only a modified no-trade clause with a 16-team trade list after July 1st, so maybe there's some semblance of truth to that being the case here, and if the Boston Bruins already got indication beforehand that Zadorov did not want to go to Edmonton, maybe it would have just been a lot easier to say, yeah, okay, well, if he doesn't want to go, then he doesn't want to go. He'll probably put Edmonton on his no-trade list once that full modified no-trade clause kicks in. Maybe it's just not really worth it here. Now, we did have some other reports going on. Puck Empire responded to their own tweet saying, this wasn't an Edmonton-specific thing. Zadorov just doesn't want to be in Canada. And that, I don't want to say it's kind of contradictory because Zadorov was in Canada for so long. But then again, it's like, hey, Nikita Zadorov was in Canada for so long. If there's anybody who has the right to say, oh yeah, well, I don't want to be in Canada anymore, it usually would be the guys who played in Canada, right? Like, I don't know, maybe that's giving Quinn Hughes and Brady Tkachuk a little too much credit, but for Nikita Zadorov, at least when he was in Vancouver, there was this element that felt like he genuinely liked being in Vancouver. We know that he wanted to stick around, but the only reason he left is because Patrick Allvin and co. fumbled the contract negotiations with Zadorov and they didn't get to him in time. It wasn't really the best handled situation there. Nikita Zadorov then signed the big contract that he is on right now in Boston, had 22 points in 81 games in back-to-back seasons, and the rest is history. In fact, he's had 22 points in a number of seasons throughout his NHL career. 22 points in 2022, 22 in 2025, 22 in 2026. 2024, he had 20. Okay, so that's a little bit less. But then he had 21 points in 2023. So Zadorov, he's very consistent when it comes to just getting 22 points a year. And then you add on the physical element, the size. He's 6'7", 256. He is a presence out there, and he is also a vocal leader in the locker room. There's a reason Zadorov was so highly touted when he was in Vancouver. Jimmy Murphy, who reports on Boston's media, he went out there and said that he had reported on the Sick podcast last week that there was chatter that the Bruins were listening on Zadorov. Was unable to confirm via agent or team sources, but where there's smoke, there is fire. Great work by the fourth period. Why would they listen on Zadorov? Isn't he part of the core? This makes no sense to me. Jimmy then replies, maybe Zadorov is not part of the core. Another reply from the Mug NHL says multiple sources, including Puck Empire, indicate that Zadorov refused to waive his trade protection to go to the Oilers. According to Pagnotta, there was a reported deal on the table between Edmonton and Boston involving Nurse, which was taken out because of that. If this is true, Eamon McLean said, I think Zadorov saved the Bruins from themselves. His contract is very reasonable for what he brings, and I think his style of play is a perfect fit here. I wouldn't trade him unless it's an offer you can't refuse, and I don't see much realistically available from Edmonton that I couldn't say no to. Well, that would have included Darnell Nurse, which, as we have already established based off of the trade which saw him get sent over to San Jose, that wouldn't have been seen as a negative valued trade. I mean, Darnell Nurse fetched Shakir Mukhamadullin and, Zach Sharp, or whomever it was, over to the Edmonton Oilers? It's not like Darnell Nurse was traded as a pure cap dump. If the Oilers were trading this dude to Boston and Nikita Zadorov was part of the return, part of me thinks maybe it would have been like Nurse and a third or something for Nikita Zadorov. Let's face it, impact-wise, on the team itself, I'd say that Nikita Zadorov and Darnell Nurse are more so in that same territory of on-ice impact, and especially when you talk about physical presence, they're kind of in the same vein nowadays. Zadorov is just bigger. I'd say that he has more flair to his game, but when it comes to the defensive inefficiencies, these guys are probably in the same territory. Especially nowadays. It's just one is making $5 million a year, the other is making $5 million. So Nikita Zadorov, if he goes over to Edmonton, I actually do think that does improve the Oilers by a decent amount. I'd say Zadorov is better than Mukhamadullin, but still, this is a guy that will add a really strong presence into the Oilers' D-core. And if he decided that he didn't want to come over to Edmonton, I feel like that's quite the indicator as to where his mindset lies. I'm also thinking about it like this. Nikita Zadorov was so good and so effective for the Vancouver Canucks when he was here in Van. If Edmonton gets Zadorov, I don't want to see Zadorov going out there and bullying some Vancouver Canucks young guys over the course of the next few years. I don't know, I just don't really think that that'd be all too great. Get Darnell Nurse away from Edmonton, okay, fine, but bringing Nikita Zadorov back into the Pacific Division? I'd prefer not. Thank goodness this guy said no to the trade, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about reports indicating that Nikita Zadorov apparently said no to getting traded to Edmonton in a Darnell Nurse trade which would have sent him over to Boston? How do you feel about this situation here? Do you think it's true? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.